an embellishment on Lashon Kodesh. You know what I'm saying? Let's see if the other sefer will stay open. Use this to stay open. Yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shalach v'nivayim.
Amen. You never say it out loud. Never would you say Baruch?
What's the story? We're all here. This is it.
Is that about the car outside?
Hold on a second. Let me just check my Beverly Beaver.
I don't see Doug Gavini's car here, so
He's not here.
he's not here. Yosef Rabin is not here.
She didn't come back yet.
That's it, yeah. Sharon is here. Sharon, you're here.
Someone's here. Someone is here. And even Shnezam is here.
Even.
Hi, Shnezam.
Hi.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit. Smack in the middle of the page, maybe a line or two above the middle. On 167, the line starts with Vahaha Soga. So we now came to discuss the other Rotzon. First, we'd like to start at length the Rotzon Shalpi Tam Vadas. The Rotzon that is created from the Hisbonenus of the Seichel. We explained the difference between the Rotzon and the Midas. How the Midas essentially are subjective, are based on personal experience. Whereas the Rotzoin is a true Rotzoin in the truth of the Inyan itself. Like he says, Elokus, mipnei shehu Elokus. Elokus because it is Elokus, because it is...
Talking about both types of Ratzon equally, the Ratzon which comes from the Seif and the Ratzon which is above the Seif?
No. We talked about the Rotzin at Api Seich. The whole discussion was Rotzin Api Seich. Elokus mipnei shehu Elokus. After I get into the next Rotzin, I'll show you that this terminology, Elokus mipnei shehu Elokus, is also not suitable in the higher level of Rotzin, even though it's such a pure statement. But it doesn't suit, doesn't fit in that Rotzin. Because the word mipnei means what? Because. Because means it's a reason. Which means it's already in Tam Vadas. And the Rotzin, the higher Rotzin, has no Chashayach Tam Vadas.
I want to ask a question about the Shura.
About what?
About the that we're learning about the truth because of the truth and not because of experience. And the only question that I had is that we said that sight is the most true, is the one that shows the truth to the highest degree. So I
The reality.
Yeah, I had a confusion because today we're learning and we came out to the idea that the most soul power is smell. So the sense that is more related to the neshama is smell. So I wanted to see how to clarify this.
No. It's a neshama experience. It wakes the neshama. Sight does not touch you, and that's why it's not an experience. It's not an experience. On the contrary, because it is higher, that's why it doesn't wake you up.
Not experience?
Sight?
Club?
Right. Sight is not based on personal experience. You could be misspoiled from what you see. Oh, what a grand thing. And that's something else about it. But the sight itself, the reality of the world, that's not an experience, that's just reality.
Smell?
Smell is a personal experience.
It's also spoiled, but there is good smell and bad smell.
Yeah, it's a personal experience. You see, we don't relate to the effect of sight because it is so fine that we take it for granted. Say, there's nothing to it. You know, okay, what does it look like? What's its color? What does it smell? You know, but the fact that we see the reality, that we just don't. It's not like we don't pay attention to it. Because we take reality for granted. And that's in fact the real reality. If reality weren't real, so then nothing would make any sense.
Can I ask a sort of side question?
It depends. I trust your judgment.
Okay, you can if you don't answer, I won't be offended.
Okay.
If someone loses their sense of sight physically, like they're losing it, it's a spiritual pagam?
Somebody, God forbid, loses his sight. We discussed it one time. He definitely loses a certain quality of life. There's no question about it. Nevertheless, because that he had been sighted before, he was able to see before, therefore the world is still a reality to him. But nowhere near to when he actually can see. Even somebody who had seen and then he loses his sight, he also loses the Yetzer Hara, so to speak. A blind person doesn't have a Yetzer Hara. Because it's not real. I mean, he may enjoy certain smells, but that's still not real. It's just...
Is that good?
What? To lose the Yetzer Hara by losing sight? No, it's not good. That question I would... It's very not good.
It's questionable, you know? Losing Yetzer Hara.
No.
Yeah, but you
The
said
whole purpose of us, of this world, is to overcome the Yetzer Hara.
You said, I remember you also said that not only he loses the Yetzer Hara, but the reason is because he loses also a sense of reality.
Well, that's what I
he
said.
loses consciousness of God also somehow.
What? Of what?
He loses somehow consciousness of the reality of the world, and therefore he also doesn't realize so much
Yeah.
about God.
Yeah, well, that's also true. I mean,
He's not a tzaddik because he's blind, let's say. Even if he
doesn't become automatically a tzaddik. All right. So that was the Indian of Rotzin Shapi Tam V'das. And then he says, as pure as this is, it is still it is still dependent and comes and is created by Tam V'das. There is an aspect of Tam V'das in it, and we discussed last time, I believe sufficiently. I hope you understood to some extent. Tam V'das means that there is a grasp and there is a mitzias to it. There's a mitzias to this Ratzon. I know what I want. And inherent in this knowledge what I want is why I want it. Like I said before, Elokus mipnei shehu Elokus. That is sort of like a reason for it. So it's not something coming from the essence of the Neshama. It's something that occurs in the person's, there's an experience involved. Then there is a Rotzon that is above that. That is above Tam V'das. This is an essential Rotzon. Essential means primary. Primary means such as a Rotzon that the Nefesh cannot be without. Not like the other Rotzon that's created by Seichel, which means that the Nefesh existed before that Seichel. And then the Seichel created it. The Nefesh could be with and without it. This is a Rotzon that the Nefesh cannot be without. It's synonymous with Nefesh. As an aside, I want to make this comment, although I made it many times before. Very important to understand, in general, in life, and in Chassidus in particular, that the Rotzon in Nefesh, the will of the Nefesh, the will to live, the will to what Nefesh wants, is not dependent on any circumstance. Like in our experience, when do I want anything? When I'm lacking it. If I'm tired, I want to sleep. If I'm hungry, I want to eat. There's something that causes it, something that gives me a prick, a discomfort. Then I want to supersede the discomfort and make it comfortable. So all of these ritzonos are not primary ritzonos. If this is all that a person wants, then it would be true to say that really what a person in essence wants is to sleep a sweet sleep indefinitely. Don't disturb me, I'm sleeping. Nothing bothers me. That's not with the nefesh. That's not what a human being is. There's an inherent rotzen that he wants something. And this want, because the word rotzen is translated in English want. Want is closely related to the idea of missing, like we say. He's missing something. He is in want of something. That's not the true meaning of rotzen. Rotzen is something that is created by the nefesh, not because it's missing, but because that's what the nefesh wants.
But it's like this is called the Ratzon Atzmi, which comes from the Etzma Nefesh, yeah? Which it wants something without lacking anything. It's like the Eibishter. He had a Ratzon to create the world, which is not to say that the Eibishter was lacking anything before the world was created. So like this part of the soul is connecting to that part of Hashem. That this part of the soul can produce a Ratzon, which like the Eibishter has a Ratzon, but it's not because the Neshama is lacking something. It's the Neshama just is.
He's all the kids.
Huh?
He's all the key.
Like Kaka a little bit saying that the Nefesh, you say, like this is what the Nefesh wants.
There's madreges, but the nefesh is elekis. That's what it's called, the nefesh elekis. because it's a true nefesh.
So do we say then that the nefesh is dependent on Hashem, or that it's mamash a part of Hashem, so there's no difference?
The nefesh is a part of Hashem, is a presence of Hashem. The highest, the ultimate inyan of the nefesh is that this is the presence of Hashem.
It does not depend on anything.
Doesn't depend on anything. This is Hashem. This is Hashem individualized to a specific nefesh, to a specific person.
So, the Ratzon that the Nefesh has for Elikus is essential because it is Elikus.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like it doesn't want to cease to exist.
Hmm?
It's like a will not to cease to exist.
Not to
To
be.
be in existence.
That's right. Essentially, that's what it is.
Huh.
That's what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. The nefesh is constantly wants to, like a fire that rises upwards, and wants to cease to be. Wants to be one with Elikus.
So all other Ratzonos that one has is rooted in that Ratzon.
Ultimately, yes.
Far away.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is why it's possible, like we discussed the other day, it's possible for a person to do something just because this is what the Rebbe wants. Kabbalah saying, even though I don't feel anything and I don't experience anything, like we said beforehand, he don't look dov kobay. He just wants Hashem. Why does he want Hashem? Because he doesn't really look to be a Metzias. He wants to be only with Hashem. All right. Okay, so this is where we're up to. Okay, I'm starting the line that begins with Hasogo, Vasogo. Okay, this word Hasogo is a continuation of the previous line. It says it's not because of Seichel Hasogo. Ki mitzad etzem hanefesh. This rotzen is mitzad etzem hanefesh. Is because of the etzem hanefesh. There is no because for it. This is the cause. This is the reason. Because this is a nefesh. V'ha hisboyunus bozeh. As we discussed the other day, that even though this rotzen is really part of the nefesh, yet we see that we awaken it and we bring it out through his boilness. If you bring it out through his boilness, then it would seem like this is a pitam v'das. His boilness is seichel. So the Rebbe explains this inyan. The hisboilnus that's involved in bringing out and revealing this rotzing, who behafloas v'roimumus einsoi boru. It's a hisbonus in the hafloa v'roimus. I can't properly translate these words hafloa v'roimumus, but essentially it means how Ein Soif is beyond of world. It's completely removed from any worldly qualifiers. Beyond world. Hafloas v'roimus. What was the hisbonus that we spoke about before? Talking Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad v'Yahavto. What was the hisbonus over there? How the whole world is bottled to Elokus. So we're talking about the relationship between Elokus and the world. Here we are talking about the relationship of the world and Elokus. Because this is from the Nefesh. The Nefesh does not know world. Doesn't know the world exists. In essence. its knowledge of the world is because of its imprisonment, so to speak, in the goof. But when we talk about the essence of the nefesh can't relate to world. It's just not real. To illustrate this at our level, in our experience, this is like you give a toy car to an adult. Does he look at it as a car? To a child, this is a car. He's mispoiled from it. And he runs it around and he's mispoiled the way he turns and all that, and he's really experiencing it. Adult doesn't see at all. He doesn't see anything yet. If he's smart enough, he lets the kid enjoy it and says, okay, it's good that the kid enjoys, develops his imagination, whatever it is. But he doesn't see it as a reality. The nefesh does not see the world as a reality. And therefore, to say that the world is bottled to Elokus, the nefesh, is a meaningless statement. But because of the nefesh is mislabish in the goof, therefore, it is not observing, and it is not conscious, so to speak, experiencing the presence of Elokus, except through his bonus. This is what we said a long time ago, that in the human being, in a Shomin Goof, everything has to go through the brain. Remember we talk about this? Everything has to go through the experience of the brain. Things that are below intelligence and above intelligence. It has to go through the brain. Otherwise it's not a real experience. Okay, you with me? Remember I explained to you about the child and the baby, and he has to learn how to walk. It takes him a year because he has to first make sense in his brain what walking is before he can start walking. And the same thing is in the other side, what the experience, the nefesh, or the asma nefesh is also, in order that should come to the forefront, that should be a real experience, it has to go through also his bonus, also through the brain. But it's a completely different his bonus. It's his bonus in hafloas v'reimus ein safe.
Even to tap out just L'mayla Tamadas, it has to go through Tamadas essentially. In order to act.
This is not Tamadas. This is not Tamadas. This is his bonus itself. His bonus itself is higher than Tamadas.
His bonus is higher than Tamadas.
Yes, and that's his bonus by hafloas v'reimus ein safe.
Isn't that a contradiction in terms that his bonus is above Tamadas?
Right. That's right. So let's examine this and understand this. In the Hizbonas that we spoke about before, we said Hashem Echad, that the whole world is bottled to Hashem. So there we have something real, quote unquote, from our perspective in the world, something real to think about. Here's a world, and we understand what the world is, and we see there is a manifestation. You know what manifestation is, everybody? There's a manifestation of an inyan that is higher than the world. Through what? Through the world, through the presence of the world. And then we understand that since this created the world, therefore the world is completely bottled to that force that created it. So there we know Elokus because we have a manifestation of it. Something that makes us think of it. When you start talking about our flaws, what makes you think of it? There's nothing in your experience, nothing in the world that makes you think of our flaws for himself. Do you follow what I'm saying? Where?
I understand that point, but how could you? That being
Wait. Hold your horses. But you understand the question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have to think in the question before we go to the answer. You have to understand the question well. Okay. When you talk about the world being bottled to Elokus, there you have a basis for this whole hisbonenus, because you have a world, and you understand with your seichel that the world has a creator, and then you realize and understand that the world actually is bottled to the creator. It's bottled in the Elokus that creates it. So you got some beginning, something that triggers this whole process, this whole intellectual process, to the point where you think about the Elokus. I've never seen the Elokus, and yet I have something to think about. Who is the creator of this? So I got some handle on it. But when you talk about haflos with Ein Musar Ein Sof, there you're not talking about how Ein Sof creates the world. You're talking about how the Ein Sof is beyond world. Nothing to do with world. So there you have nothing in your experience of the world that triggers that idea, that thought.
So how do you have that from?
I'm carrying you through this to understand this. Okay? So you understand the question.
Yeah.
So there's nothing there that triggers this idea. So therefore the question is, like you, it's obvious, but what I want is that you shouldn't ask me the question. You should ask yourself the question. And then I'll go with you, understand?
I asked it to myself, I didn't have an answer, so I try you.
Yeah, I'm like figuring.
But you understand, I want you to be with me inside, not just ask a question, okay, give me an answer. I want you to go into it and understand, so how is it? What kind of bonus?
Like, we always talk about the table has an edge to grab onto.
Right.
When it comes to speaking about the world and the world being built to the Lakusa, you have an edge. You know that there's a Shem, you know that there's a world. So you grab onto something and you figure your way around. But when you're talking about something which is completely and totally above.
Yes, and there's nothing that triggers the whole thought. What are you talking about? While you're talking about haflos for Ein Musar Ein Sof, there's nothing that should trigger that thought to begin with in your experience. That means you have an
It has
approach.
to be something.
It has to be
You
something.
have a soul.
That means that this is the moment where you are thinking not on the basis of your worldly experience, but on the basis of your neshama experience. It's true, in my world I don't have anything. But in me, I have a sense of a certain reality. I don't have to have proof for it. I don't have to have proof for it. I know it's there without proof. I don't need anything to trigger it. Because this is Ein Sof. Ein Sof is all over. When do I need to prove something? but I have two different things. This is something which is reality itself.
You're not even working with the world, Bichlal. You're working
Nothing
with
but
God.
one. That's right.
So you don't need to prove anything.
That's right. You know it because you know it intrinsically. This whole hisbonenus in our flaws, is already hisbonenus that's already higher than Tamadas. Is a hisbonenus. But it's based on Lamala Mitamadas. You know this without proof. You know that there is a creator. You have proof for it. There's a created. Hafloas v'reimaser in soif. You know it because you know it. Not on the basis of proof.
Yeah, but isn't there a difference between where does this thought even come in without there being anything that triggers it? Well, the neshama, it's already truthful. Neshama knows it, but that's different than being misplaced on it. I mean, the truth of the neshama is on a level higher than conscious thought.
That's right. Okay. So then, that's exactly it. So this is something which we cannot really fully understand because it's malam vadas. We cannot fully understand this. It's lamalam vadas. So what do we misboinen? We misboinen in what is it that the neshama knows? That's why you call it hafloas. Hafloa means we misboinen in the supreme aspect of it. What kind of hisbonenus is this? How does it consist? It consists in recognizing the limits of world, and then recognizing how Elokus does not have these limits. To Hafloa. And why does it not have these limits? Because it's not worldly at all. It doesn't need to be created. If we would think, we have no idea what kind of entity this is that does not need to be created. Like I say, Holocaust. But the minute we have these words that not need to be created, we have something to be misboinen in. Not to understand, but to relate to. The illustration for this, like I pointed out in the past, the illustration for this is that we can look at things and we know what we're looking at. So I know what I'm looking at. I can see that there are things to look at. Then I can look into pure space, look into the sky. What do you see when you look at the sky? Nothing. If you see nothing, so what are you looking at? You're looking at that which cannot be described. And looking at that is only, you can't describe it. You can't, when I see this watch, you ask me, what did you see? I saw a watch. I can tell you what I saw. So I can translate what I saw into words. And I can carry it in my memory. Which means that I have hasoginess. I have seichel v'hasog. I grasped it, and I have it. This is bonus. I can't grasp it. I can only have it while I think of it, into it. Just like when I look at something that is beyond grasp. I can only experience it while I'm looking at it. But I can't carry it with me. Because there's nothing to carry. There's no hasog in it. Just one second. Do I have it with me?
No, I have one question.
Huh?
I didn't get. I still don't get the fact. Hisbonenus implies that there is somewhere I can grab to. If Seichel implies that there is somewhere I don't.
Hisbonenus, there's two.
Hisbonenus
Hisbonenus in general. Let me explain to you about Hisbonenus. Hisbonenus in general is not the grasp. The grasp is when you learn something and you have means of explaining that idea, and this is when you grasp it. And then you go into Hisbonenus. Hisbonenus means you already have that, you already grasped it, you already relate to it. Now you wanna connect to it. You think about what it means. I'll give you a simple illustration. You come to the conclusion, the rational conclusion, that Hashem created the world. You have proof for it, logical, rational proof. And you understand it very clearly. Okay, now you have it packed away. Now you sit down and say, let me think, what does it mean that I created the world? How does that change the whole mitzvahs of the world? What does it mean? It's a different world. It's not the same world that I knew yesterday. Right? So there is no grasp. This is called Hisbonenus. You reflect on on that which you grasp, that which you understood. You reflect on it, and you go into, like we learned before, you go into the pneumius of it, so that it becomes real to you. So that subsequent, after this, Hisbonenus, for instance, what we talk about, we spoke about last time. One of the times, that after you misboinen in the Indian, and Hashem creates the world, you no longer depend on the rationale that brought you to know it, that Hashem creates the world. Now it becomes your reality. This is the world. There's no other world. That's what Hisbonenus. Hisbonenus means that you actually connect to the Indian and you experience it intellectually, what it means. It changes your whole perspective on the thing that you understood. So similarly, in this instance, with Hisbonenus be'hafloas v'reimus ein seif. When Hisbonenus hafloa v'reimus, you want to ask something like that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If you're still using, like, mashalim, so to speak, that you know from the world that you live in, to even comprehend things, to even try to be misboined in Elikus, that it creates the world and it's beyond this whole idea, you're still being misboined through world.
Right.
And it's like, it seems like how could you're very much still like worldly about the whole thing. It's not just a free, a connection to a spiritual feeling, but more like hisbonenus through world to that which is above world.
You're talking about this hafloas v'reimus or the other him? Which is one?
Hafloas v'reimus.
Hafloas v'reimus, I'm still coming to it. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
hisbonenus that connects to what's in above time to past.
right. Hisbonenus that connects this hafloas v'reimus.
Oh,
I spoke about it before, and then I went off to explain the other hisbonenus. I'm coming back now to this.
Ah.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I wanted to explain the concept of hisbonenus. Now,
Hisbonenus in general.
Right. That hisbonenus is not grasp; it is connecting.
Okay.
Therefore, we can come back over here and say, "I'm misboinen hafloas v'reimus." How can you misboinen something that you have no grasp on?
You said through the world.
No, through the world you know the other thing, know that God created the world. But Aflos for Amos, you don't know through the world.
Okay. I thought you were, that was it.
Okay, that's what, I'm sorry, I confused you a little bit. But you got it straight now. Aflos for Amos, you don't have a grasp. This doesn't come from a grasp. Okay? So now understand this. Okay, please don't get confused. I'm going back to the other Yidons. When you misboinen in the union of Hashem Echad, so you grasp the idea, you understood the idea. Then you misboinen in it. What are you misboinen in? What do you know about this thing that you misboinen? I know what I grasped, what I understood about it. That's the basis for my hisbonenus. Hafloas v'roimus in soif, I don't have a grasp on. So, how do I know this whole thing that I'm misboinen about? That I know, that's what you yourself answered, that I know in my nefesh. I know Elokus directly. And now I'm misboinen in the Elokus that the nefesh knows.
How can you connect to something which you can't grasp? I mean, except for the nefesh, but the nefesh is already connected to it. So what's the accomplishment of the nefesh is already connected? If you can't connect the conscious mind to it, so then what are we doing?
But you don't need to. You don't need to, because here the idea is to reveal the nefesh.
In which way is it revealed, though?
Oh, when you're misboinen in this, the nefesh now finds a place in your brain to be able to express itself. As long as you, in your mind, the world is a mitzias, and you have to have proof that God created it, the nefesh stays away. The nefesh can't relate directly to this whole process. You understand that, right? Because the world is too real, and the nefesh can't relate to the world. The nefesh only knows a lakus to begin with. Then when you go above that, and you relate to a lakus, you say, oh, that's a reality. Now, what's a lakus? What's a lakus? A lakus is completely supreme to the world. It creates the world. And it itself doesn't need to be created. What's a lakus? That you don't know from the world. That you know, you literally, in the real sense, in your seichel, you don't know. But you know that it's there. And the nefesh can relate to this inyan that it's there. Why? You with me still? The nefesh can relate to this inyan that the lakus is there. The pure lakus that's higher than world. Because the nefesh actually, that's what it wants. It has a rotzen to a lakus itself. Not because it creates my world, but because it wants a lakus itself. To the nefesh, a lakus is a reality. The nefesh wants a lakus for its own sake.
We said that the nefesh itself, it doesn't relate to the world at all.
That's right.
So then how does the nefesh expresses this desire for likus, which is above any reason, as an essential connection between the nefesh and Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
It expresses this into the seichel of a man.
No, not in the seichel, in the conscience. Not in the seichel. It's never grasped.
But the conscious, I mean, so ultimately this is expressed in some way in a person's actions or in a person's thoughts or somehow if it's in his conscious.
Yes, it's expressed in a person's actions, a person's thoughts and so forth, but in a totally different manner. A person who has reached that madrega, like it says by Moshe Rabbeinu, that Shechina medaberes mitei groinai. It's the Shechina speaking, not the human being. Because he becomes one with the lakus, and it's the Shechina speaking.
So are we saying that this type of Isbaimus and this type of Ratzain is expressing a human being? Is like this is we're talking about the level of Moshe Rabbeinu and
This is well, ultimately yes, but it also can be experienced at a much lower level, on a momentary level, and just at a moment when one is misborn, and at a much lesser level, just have a surmise, have an idea what it is. I mean, there's infinite levels, but the Inyan is there. And how is it there? It is there because it's true, not because I understood it, not because I grasped it, but because it's just true. And I relate to that truth. Just like, I gave you the illustration, and don't want to take it too far, but you look at the infinite space, you see what? Nothing. So, do you see or you don't see? Of course I see, but it's just the experience of the truth itself, not of anything specific, or anything that I can experience, I can express. And I'll take it a step further, so to bring us back down to our reality. This ultimately translates on a practical level. It translates in a human being, in a Yid especially, in his confidence that whatever he is going to be confronted with, he is going to be able to handle. Because it's not dependent on just knowing this, knowing that. There is the truth itself.
The about saying Asmi results in B'tachim in Hashem.
That's right. And other, because he has a direct connection with Hashem. And whatever I'll be confronted with, I'll be able to handle. I mean, you understand the effect of this. This is where a person gets that sense of that kind of confidence, because he realizes that it's a real. His presence in the world is real, and it's going to be able to carry through whatever he needs to do. To find the pathways for it and to figure out how, that he'll have to confront on a momentary basis, but it's all soluble.
Would you say that?
I'm sorry, Sharon wasn't here when I said this.
I'm sure he is too.
Huh?
I'm sure he is too.
No.
Would you say that this idea of his violence in the flash, could it also be, in a way, like for someone to think in the concept that there is a truth that does not need any reason at all?
Mm-hmm.
This is like, we always think, why is this here? Why is so? It's violent in the idea that there is such a thing that doesn't need a reason.
That's right.
This also could be a way of understanding.
That's right. It's all part of this. Yeah, definitely. It's all part of it.
And the other question I have, when we say that it cannot be grabbed, this is not a historian. It's just such a mileage that it cannot be grabbed. So the fact that we cannot grab it doesn't mean that we cannot grab it. It's like that's exactly the greatness of this.
That's right. It's not graspable. There is two situations when a certain thing cannot be grasped. One is called oimeg hamusog, and one is called koitzer hamasik. Oimeg hamusog and koitzer hamasik. Oimeg hamusog means the depth of the thing which needs to be grasped. It's beyond grasp. And koitzer hamasik means the limit of one's ability to grasp. Yeah. Everybody has a limit, so it's something that one person cannot be grasped, another person can grasp. But this is all within the realm of grasp. In other words, it's graspable, except I cannot grasp it. But it's graspable by someone else. But then there is something that is not graspable altogether. This is called haflos v'rei musar inside. It's beyond grasp.
Is one of the ways to be like to connect to this is bonus on a very low level, let's say, like for instance, if someone experiences like a very spiritual experience, like for instance in 770 during like a niggin in like in kedusha, like some serious like very emotional experience, and to like connect to the feeling, like is that a way to be misboinen in such an inyan? Just to feel the.
I know what you mean, but it's not that at all, because when you're talking about a feeling, which is emotion,
Yeah.
and emotion is murgish. It's even below the seichel. It's an experience.
So how do you get like?
B'derech klal, when learning and davening are two separate things. So when you're learning, don't think about how you get. Try to understand what you're learning. They're two separate worlds. You understand? So when you start worrying, how do you get? That's not appropriate for
How is it-
learning.
I mean, is there like a place where you connect it to like you, or just learn?
What?
Is there like a place where we could take this and connect it to us?
Well, first understand it. First understand what we're learning. That's the first step. And then, when you learn what's negated to the other things, to davening and all that, you'll see where this can be used. But first, everything has to be learned on the learning level. Okay, so now so I think this is okay, this is clear. So his bonus in this is in the haflo of a roimus in soiborim, which means it's not based on seichel. His bonus itself is not based on seichel. It's based on the nefesh knowledge. So if it's based on nefesh knowledge, why didn't you misboin it? It's there already. The answer is who. The whole his bonus is rak leoirer ezo Abba v'rotz. It is only to awaken this Abba v'rotz. It is not to facilitate it, to create it, to awaken it.
Why does it mention Abba and Ratzin next to each other? Seemingly we're talking here about Ratzin and Atzmi. Why is it necessary to mention the same thing when they meet us?
Because Abba is a midah. Abba is a translation of Rotzain in the heart. Rotzain is a translation of Abba in the mind. Understand? So they're actually, in a certain sense, interchangeable, but they're two different
Is that always?
levels.
Is that always?
Yeah, that's what it means.
But doesn't that make the rod sign like under the midah, through a midah?
No. On the contrary, the midah comes from the Rotzain.
You said no, but you said in. So what do you mean by rod sign is a translation of ahava in the mind?
The idea of Abba means Abba and Rotzain are almost interchangeable concepts. Except when we talk about midas, we call it Ahava. When we talk about the mind, we call it Rotzain. Yeah. So this is only only to awaken the Abba and the Rotzain. Aval ha-Rotzain, but the Rotzain itself, hu mitzad etzem teva haneshama. It is because of Not because of the hisbonus, not because of any time and any reason why he wants it, but mitzad etzem teva and shama, because of the essential nature of the neshama. Shenimshach v'roitze b'oir and soy boro. That the neshama is drawn and want ein soy. Not because the oil soif fills some gap or satisfies something, but this is what the nefesh is itself. The whole bechinas ahav or rabba, and this is what's known as ahav or rabba, shalamaylo mitam vodas.
What's the difference between this
Well,
Avarava, which is above reason and the knowledge, and surely it's not for Hergish Atzman. What's the difference between this and the Ratzain, which below, comes from the Seichel, it also doesn't, it's also not for Hergish Atzman. I mean, this comes from a place above.
I explained the other day what is the limit of the Rotzen Shapitam V'das. This is what I started today also. Rotzen Shapitam V'das, even though it's Rotzen, it's not based on personal experience, but there is a Tam V'das, there is a grasp in what the Rotzen is about. Shapitam V'das. Like we said, like I pointed out, Montolokus Mipnei Sheholokus. There's a sense of reason. And if there's a sense of reason, it's not called Av or Rabba. Rabba means great. What does great mean? Great means it engulfs the whole person. There isn't he has no engulfs, it takes over the whole person. There isn't an isolated action where he has Ahava, but he has other things. His whole person is involved in this Ahava. It's called Ahava Rabba.
Avraham is not based on any.
Right. That's why it's called Ahava. If it's based on something, it has to be based. Like we say Ahavas Eilo. Huh?
That's what that means.
Right.
Ahava based on something.
Right. Ahavas Eilo. Ahava Rabba, this is a different material completely.
Out of that, I have a question. We say in
I'm sorry you missed it, but you'll get it from here.
we say in the brachas of Shema, Avat Olam Haftarnu, right? And I know that there is other nusach that say Avat Lala.
Right.
And apparently it seems to be, according to Hasidus, that Dafka shows us beyond any possible substantiation, right? So Dafka we should say Avat Lala Haftarnu.
We say Ahavas Olam. There is a nusach, there's the Nusach Ashkenaz that says Ahava Rabba, and some say Ahavas Olam in the weekdays and Ahava Rabba on Shabbos. But we say always Ahavas Olam. And the simple explanation for that is exactly what we're learning now. Because this is a bracha that prepares us for Kriya Shema. A Kriya Shema has to be with our seichel. You have to understand what we are doing in Mizmoina.
Is there a mile on the first level over the second level? Just like we now see the mile of the second level, the level that is without reason. Is there a mile on the first level?
Yes. The mile on the first level is that it permeates the person's mind and heart. The other one is just higher. There's a certain section in Tanya where he explains this.
Wow.
This is it, I guess. Can you imagine? We actually moved a whole line ahead.
You're about to say
That's
we're
what you think.
backwards.
Inside we might have moved a line ahead. Outside it's like a whole world new from me. Every line is like a new one.
These few minutes that you're out, maybe you'll listen in. Beside the Chazor, you're just listening for the camp here.
Sometimes when we learn like this, sometimes I feel sad when I learn. I said there is so much in each line. I'm just reading and reading.
no.
Like each line is so.
Skip the whole page.
You skip the page.
It was like, 1 second, I wrote more than that.
Just read them.
Yeah, one line.
Be
You
misguided.
read one line.
Be
but I wrote-
misguided in the blank page.
I wrote 2 pages.
Be misguided in the blank page. That's a muscle on applause for English.
Good idea, no?
That's why you have a blank page.
So like, oh, you brought this, right?
Right?
Oh yeah.
Alright, it's pointless on these two.
That's what, first. At the end of the day, we say that this at same level is that there's no reason. It's beyond grasp, beyond limits, beyond everything. Isn't Hasidus always explain that at the end of the day, limits is a higher power of God than the limited? Like the fact that God can be within reason and within limitations and grasp somehow is a higher level. Like I have came to this point many times in Hasidus where it says that it's not huge for God to be infinite, but the fact that He can limit Himself somehow, that we can actually grasp something in godliness is even a higher level of God. So according to this, how there is certain like real mile in being able to rationalize the book.
Yes. We'll have to leave it for someone. We probably get to it in this room. It's true that the Ein Sof is also Ein Sof, is limitless, and can also function in limit, and that shows the greatness. And this is, it's a whole. They will have to proceed. They have a line at a time.
Are we able to connect to this meaning of into that which is above, into the Rotzen which is above Tam V'Tas? Like normal people?
I mean, practically, but I don't, I'm certainly not. This comes after the first.
What do you mean?
After the first response, after first understanding the beetle of the world, then you can start thinking about this.
So it's not even a possibility.
It's a possibility, but first you have to go through, understand the beetle of the world. Otherwise, it's like going into imagination. It's not real. As long as the world is something enticing, something real, how can you think about that which is beyond world? You're just imagining. All I'm trying to explain to you is you should understand what this is about. Because it's always important to understand even things that we can really reach, like the Alter Rebbe explains what a tzaddik gomer is. And he says, by the way, wait a second, don't jump the gun. This is not for everyone. This is not for everyone, not even for every tzaddik. Even amongst tzaddikim, this is a select few. So what are you telling it to us? It's important to know, just like we explained all the time, that the Rotzein, that's Al Pi Tam V'Das, Al Pi Seichel, is based and is rooted in the Rotzein that's Al Ma'alim Tam V'das.
So
So
we
we
all
have,
are
not for
connected
that,
to
we
it
wouldn't-
anyway.
what?
We're all connected to it somehow. We're just
We're all definitely connected. It's a question of being aware of it, experiencing it or not. But we're all connected, no question about it.
to experience it. You have to be like
And that's something else.
way beyond.
We're all connected, no question about it. This is, like I explained, this is why we are capable of Kabbalah Soil. What's Kabbalah Soil? Just do because you were told? What am I, a donkey? The answer is because in this Kabbalah Soil, I sense that which is high in Tamadas. I sense the reality that's high in Tamadas, and I can relate to it.
How could you relate this to the importance? Maybe I'm going out of the subject, but maybe not. To the idea of his kashrus to the Rebbe. Could you say that, like Hasidus explains about Melech, that through you having complete bittul to the Melech, and letting, like, when we say that in this also is a very much important thing of something important about his kashrus, that through us having his kashrus to the Rebbe or to Tzadik Adoid, we somehow can relate to this level. Not like we feel this level of locus, but we can relate to something that is higher than our world, right? It's the only way we can grasp somehow something that is higher than the world.
Right. It doesn't give us a grasp,
No.
but it gives us a means to live at this high level. When you go out on Mitzvah and you meet a Yid that you've never seen, never heard of, and it means nothing to you personally, nothing, and you have a sense of Avos Yisrael, and you say, please put on tefillin. This is living at a level that is beyond Tamadas for a person.
Why? We have a reason.
Your Tamadas. Your Tamadas means the grasp of your world. It's just outside of your world.
Your immediate world.
Yeah, the world that you live in. It's a much bigger world that you have no can't relate to.
It's Kabbalah Zohar, right?
Yeah, it's based on Kabbalah style, but this opens you up to a greater perception, a greater level of avodah that on your own you would never reach. How do I come to think about this guy? I can't even relate to this whole thing. I feel a stranger. I'm not in the real world. And yet we go, we do it, and we feel quite at home with it. Why? Because of these kashas and that. Okay.
No, it's like amazing.
All right. You turn it off already? Not yet.
Alright.
Yeah. Okay, not too much. You have to go.